The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. In the midst of one of the Bronx's busiest election seasons in recent memory, tonight we present a debate between the candidates running in the Democratic primary in the 15th City Council District, a seat that has been held for the past 12 years by term-limited Councilman Joel Rivera. As with all of our debates, to ensure balance, we do not accept phone calls during the program, but you can make comments or ask questions by posting on the BronxTalk Facebook page or sending an email to bronxtalk@hotmail.com. For the record, this is the 40th debate we've hosted in BronxTalk's 19 years. The 15th City Council District includes the Bronx neighborhoods of Bathgate, Belmont, Crotona, Fordham, East Tremont, Van Nest, and West Farms. Now let's meet the 6 candidates. And we'll start over here. It is Raquel Batista. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you.
It is Joel Bowser. Thank you, Mr. Bowser, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Cynthia Tompkins. Thank you for joining us. Albert Alvarez. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Gary.
Joel Rivera. Thank you for joining us. And also Richie Torres. Thank you
to see you,
for
Gary.
joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, here's how tonight's forum will go. We've extended the total time of our show to an hour to make sure we give voters their best chance to learn about each of you. I will direct a question to one candidate. That candidate will respond. After, we'll have a short, free-flowing dialogue between all of the candidates, with the original respondent having the final word. And we'll continue our questioning in that manner. As moderator, I will reserve the right to ask a follow-up or move on to the next question as necessary. At the end, each candidate will give a 1-minute closing statement. And by prior agreement, the first question will be addressed to Raquel Batista. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you again.
Let's just talk a little bit about your background. In February of 2010, Vantage Properties reached a settlement with Governor Cuomo's office of $1 million over charges they had pushed out and harassed low-income tenants. Just months later, you were hired by Vantage as a vice president for corporate responsibility and compliance. Housing, more specifically tenant-landlord relations, are a central theme of this entire campaign. Can tenants be assured, if you're elected, that you're not actually a wolf in sheep's clothing?
Absolutely. I started off my career as a tenant organizer with the Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition, and there I worked in the neighborhoods of Mount Hope and Fordham Bedford, helping tenants address issues from repairs to mold, other issues. And throughout my career, I've always been a proponent for tenants. And my role while I was at Vantage was to represent the tenant's voice at the table, and which I did while I was there. So absolutely, that would be number one on my agenda. I think a very important issue to bring forward is being able to really give the City Council real power to be able to represent the tenants and bringing home rule to the New York City Council.
Okay. Others want to weigh in on that topic or related?
I think with regards to, Gary, if I may.
Sure.
With regards to our issue with housing and landlord-tenant issues, there was a study that was completed that clearly shows that we have a problem in housing court. We have one-sided hallway litigation taking place there, and that needs to change. It needs to stop. And I believe what we need to do is to put advocates in there to represent tenants who are facing eviction. We can do that, legal advocates. And I think we also need to put in a new type of mediation into housing court that is active, it's not passive, and it actually helps to represent the tenants and everyone sitting at the table.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I think we need more transparency when it comes to housing and special housing needs. In the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 people that visited my office. One of them's a person that's staying in a friend's house in Co-op City, and her daughter has MS, and she's pretty much homeless. And another one is a paraplegic who's in Beth Abraham, and both of them have been on waiting lists for more than 5 years waiting for housing. And in a recent article, it says that there's over 100,000 people that are looking for housing in the city, and a large number of those people are from the Bronx. So I think we need to look at that more, and why these waiting lists are taking so long, and why other individuals are able to get housing sooner.
Okay.
I think
else?
that
Go ahead, Mr. Albert.
I think that we need to continue to bring affordable housing into the district, but not just any type of affordable housing. We need to make quality affordable housing. I find that when working with the non-for-profits, normally those organizations have a social service component and have a different sense of working with the community and maintaining that type of housing. So I think we need to expand those programs. I think we also need to look at putting some pressure on the federal level to get some senior citizen housing, because there is a big need in the district for senior citizen housing that's not being addressed.
Okay. Ms. Batista, you want to get the final word on that as for our
I think
rules?
the final word on the housing, I would definitely have to agree. We need to bring in more resources. We need to really support the organizations that have been doing the work for over 30 years here in the Bronx and in District 15, and making sure that we maintain affordable quality housing in the
Okay.
district.
Thank you very much.
Gary, actually, can I add a word? Or?
Yes, sure, although then she'll get a chance to answer it if she
No,
has
of course.
something final.
Well, I want to discuss public housing. I'm a product of public housing, and I feel there's been a failure of investment in public housing at every level of government. Public housing has about $15 billion in capital needs for new roofs, new elevators, new boilers, and yet we'll only receive $2 billion to meet those needs. So public housing is dangerously underfunded, dangerously undermaintained, and it should be the priority of our city council, of our state legislature, and our federal government to properly invest in public housing.
Okay, did you want to respond since you have the opportunity?
Yes, and I also think that with that comes the city having real oversight over what's happening in the NYCHA buildings. And so I think part of the role of the city council is making sure that there's that checks and balances when it comes to the resources that are going into NYCHA housing.
Okay. Mr. Bowser, I want to ask you about your campaign. You don't have a campaign website in this day and age where communications with constituents and interactivity and the sharing of information with the public are a matter of necessity. If you don't have it during the campaign, how can you manage a full city council office and website and web information for the constituents?
I think that you're mistaken at this point.
Okay.
There is a website.
I had looked it up.
I called it up, and if you go
It
on...
must be recent because we...
No, it's not a recent. It's been up for a few months already.
Oh, really? All right, then
Either
I'm
they
mistaken.
went to the wrong site or something, but it's there.
Okay.
I checked it before coming
Okay,
to
great.
make sure it was updated properly, so it's there. So
Okay, let's talk a little bit more then about the campaign. Talk to me about your background. You are a reverend. Talk to me about how that applies to becoming a city council member. Should constituents be concerned that you will lose your sense of priority from not be able to distinguish between your faith-based work and your work as a council member?
well, for the last 25 years, my work has been within the community. Being a senior pastor for the last 7 years is just part of the step of in my journey in life. The fact is that I've been an advocate for the people for over 25 years. I've been working within the community. I have assisted people with housing, helping them find jobs, assisting them in many levels through food drives, clothing drives, trying to be that beacon of hope within my community. I've always believed that we're there to impact people's lives. and to empower people to do better. My faith-based, my faith part of my life, though I work at a church, it does not mix with what I do in the city council. It won't mix because my church is one aspect of my life. Working for the public, for the people, is another. I will never put my faith before the people. I have to accept everybody together.
I'll just ask a follow-up and then we'll open it up. For example, issues that may affect the LGBT community in the Bronx, which is obviously a very important voting bloc and very important in the 15th Council District. Some people would say, well, if he feels that way from a religious perspective, yet from a legal perspective, he may need to separate that. Can you separate that?
Absolutely. People misjudge, and they misjudge a believer or a Christian, and they call us homophobic, or they say that we hate the LGBT community, and that is not true. The fact is that in our line of business, as Christians that we are, we don't hate. We don't agree with the lifestyle, but that doesn't mean that you can't come to where I worship. It doesn't mean that I will not accept you for who you are. It doesn't mean that my office will be closed to you. If you have a need and you come to my office, I'm going to take care of you. That's just it. And in my church, I have people who visit who are gay and who are openly gay. They come to my church. We don't reject them. We accept everybody.
Okay. Others want to weigh in on this?
Well, I would like to say that
Then Mr. Alvarez.
being a gay woman, I have to take issue with you saying that the LGBT community considers you hateful. We don't. We don't. However, what we do have issue with is when hate is preached in churches to their congregation, and then goes beyond that into violence.
Okay.
And we've had a large amount of violence against the gay community this year, and it's escalating. It has escalated. And so that's an important issue, right? We're not interested in whether you agree, but we are interested in whether you are putting out to your congregation words that would then stimulate violent behavior. And that we know has occurred.
Mr. Alvarez?
And so we take issue.
I think that when we talk about the LGBT community, we need to look at that there needs to be a center in the Bronx. And there's been a conversation about bringing back a Bronx center. And I think that's an important aspect because we talk about services and we talk about where can people turn to and where can people look at getting services. But, they can come into the governmental office, but we're a governmental office. We're not going to be able to provide all the necessary resources. We need to create a center that's funded and viable in the community so that the people of all of our community have access to it.
Others? All right, Mr. Rivera, then we'll go here.
I don't have a problem with saying that my faith shapes who I am. I'm proud that I'm a Christian and that I try to walk like Christ. If you study Christ, Christ always helped the disadvantaged, the disconnected, the homeless person, the prostitute. So I think it's what type of message is being preached. I've always been taught as a Christian that to help the least of those, to help those that don't have. So I don't have a problem saying that I am a Christian, I'm proud to be a Christian, and it shapes who I am, and it's because of that that I've helped and served people in the Bronx and will continue to look out for the underdog and the least of those. That's what the Bible says to do.
Okay, Ms. Batista, you wanted to say something.
I think the issue is, who Mr. Balsa has decided to align himself with. And when it comes to issues, I think that impact not only the LGBT community, but women and reproductive justice issues, I take issue with that because I think it is very important that women have full access to healthcare issues. And if that could possibly be something that there will be barriers to, I would be very concerned as a woman in District 15.
Okay, others, you can respond to
Yeah,
that.
I want to respond to what Cynthia said. That I'm not saying that the whole entire community is an issue or there's hatred going on. There are churches that are radical in their teachings and their beliefs. They're extremists. I would invite everybody here to come to my church and have a sit on one of my services and see if at the end of the service if you guys don't want to stay there. Because my church...
I wouldn't. I go to my father's.
My church, you go to your father's. My church presents and represents in the community where it is a known fact. Anywhere you walk within the community of the church, a 10-block radius, and ask anyone there, can I go somewhere where I can get help? Can I go somewhere where I can be assisted in any way? They will always point to you. You could be in another church, in front of another church. They'll point down and say, go down the hill to that church, Calvary, that they will take care of you there. So we don't preach hate. And I'm against that. I'm against people preaching hate, and I'm against rejecting people because of their gender preference. It's ridiculous. We are Christians, we are believers, but we also accept and embrace everybody. That's what church is about, embracing people.
Thank you very much. Ms. Tompkins,
Yes.
you've been decorated for your work, and did you want to, somebody else wanted to say something?
Mr. Torres wanted to say something.
No, I agree with Cynthia,
Okay,
actually.
so-
Words have consequences, and we have to be careful not to create an environment in which individuals are more likely to commit violence. I mean, there are children who are being evicted from their homes simply because of their sexuality. So we don't want to create an atmosphere of hate. So I completely agree with Cynthia on that.
So what I was saying is that you've been decorated for your work in fighting crime and organizing communities against crime, and your background in law and crime fighting. Certainly no one could disagree with that initiative and even the success that you've had. But the job of a council member is a lot larger than one issue. Are you just a one-issue candidate, and is that what the 15th District needs in a council member?
Actually, I'm a multi-issue candidate because life is complex and human beings are life, right? When I began in my community, I looked at it as a human being, a person. Our life is complex. We had a tremendous amount of violence, so we focused there. But it became more than that. We provided programming for our youth to help them engage in a positive way, to develop better in their educational aspects, and also to deter them from getting caught up into street activity, crime activity in particular. In addition to that, we addressed housing issues. We addressed issues that were related to health and eating and access to good food. We addressed a lot of different issues in our community with when I started putting things together. So, and then when I look at my resume is more than just prior law enforcement. I'm also I've had a small business. I'm currently a lawyer for the Legal Aid Society, a criminal defense lawyer. I do the community work, which I love every day when I leave work, working with people in the community in any and every way that I can. I volunteer also to do work in the LGBT community and for women's rights.
Okay. Others want to respond? Mr. Alvarez?
Yeah. I think that looking at what Cynthia's done, it's been great. In knowing the district and being a part of the district my entire life, I know that there's a lot of different needs within the district. And I think that one of the things that we need to do is also see how we can strengthen the precinct community councils. And I'm asking for, one of the things I want to do is look to see how we can model it almost after how DOE is doing it with the parent-teacher coordinators. We need to have our precinct councils be able to bring the community together with the police department and let that message go up the chain of command. We need the brass to understand why the community feels sometimes neglected, why the community is upset, why certain things are happening, so that they can then put in some resources and help keep our streets safer.
Others?
I have to respond to that because I'm the president of the 46th Precinct Community Council. And I can tell you, thank you so much for caring about us. And please, if you are elected, give us more money for National Night Out, which is tomorrow,
right.
August 6th. But what I can say is this. As president, coming in September of last year, we dealt with the difficult issues. The officers, the commanders of the precinct, and also the public, we brought everyone together at the 4-6. We talked about the difficult issues, the stop and frisk issue. We talked about how the policing was being done. We know that the bridges were broken, and we've said, how can we build them?
Others want to weigh in on this, so we'll move forward. Okay,
I'm
first
also
Mr. Bowser,
part
then Mr. Rivera.
And I'm also part of the council of the 4-2 precinct. And one of our initiatives that we have put into place has been trying to restore the relationship between the people and the police department. We got to take this and we got to be real with this. The fact is that the people and the police department, there's like a big gap between the two of them. They don't trust the police. They don't want to talk to the police. They don't like the police in their area. And in trying to bring the community to these council meetings are very difficult because of the lack of trust. So what we're doing now is that we're trying to reestablish a relationship once again with community affairs, going more into our communities and going one-on-one with the people, walking the streets and getting to meet them with a smile and then develop the relationship little by little.
Others?
I think it's important to take initiative and create new programs. And one of the things that I did is we created a 6-week series called Conversations for Change and the 4-4 precinct, where for 6 weeks police officers spoke with people in the community, non-confrontational, and then it was followed up by a basketball game and a basketball tournament. So my issue is that the police department says, oh, come to our meetings, come to our roll call, as if it's the community's responsibility to gain their trust. No. It's supposed to be a two-way street where we meet, where we talk, and we work together. And they try to act as if these issues of discrimination are isolated issues. They're not. It's a practice that happens all the time by the police department.
Mr. Torres?
No, I mean, I agree with what has been said here. I mean, I'm committed to fostering, improved relations between the police department and the community. So I would support greater investments in PAL programs, in the Explorers programs, as well as the precinct councils. And I feel there should be a sense of accountability to the community. If you're a civic leader and there's a crime in your neighborhood, then the precinct commander should reach out to you and notify you about the crime levels in your own neighborhood so that you're kept continually informed about the safety in your blocks.
Ms. Tompkins, you get the final word. Did you want to
Yes, I
say
wanted to
say
say
something?
something.
You want to go ahead? All right, let's first Mr. Rivera, then Ms. Batista, and then you'll wrap it up.
I saw an interview, Mr. Torres, that you did on, I believe it was Stonewall. There was an endorsement of yours where they asked you point blank about stop and frisk and just relationships between police departments and community. And it just seems that the answer that you gave in that interview is a little different than what you're saying now. Do you recall that interview and what you said on
We'll
that
just get to
endorsement?
the point
Well, I
and
think
say
that,
what you didn't like.
That interview
so we
is
can
a
address
figment
it.
of your imagination because it never happened. But I've been endorsed by the Working Families Party, which has been at the forefront of advancing the Community Safety Act. So I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Okay. Ms. Batista?
Well, actually, I was going to make a mention about the Community Safety Act and the fact that it did pass the council and it was vetoed by the mayor, and that's a very important initiative for our neighborhoods because that's going to be a vehicle in that we will be able to hold the police department more accountable by having a general inspector and putting an end to racial profiling.
I'll give you the final word here, ma'am.
I think what we're really talking about right now, it sounds like stop and frisk. So let's get to the heart of it. I believe in balance. I believe that we need to have, NYPD needs to have the tools it needs to do to keep our community safe. At the same time, we have to safeguard the rights of every resident, right? And so tools, stop and frisk, whatever you want to call it, the case, People v. Du Bois, lays it out completely where it's constitutional. If the training and policies of NYPD are in line with that, which I believe they'll get there, we're going to be okay. I think we're going to work it out. We're New Yorkers.
I'm hoping we'll get back to stop and frisk, so we'll
Yeah.
keep moving around,
Yeah, I
and
hope so, too.
because I know everybody has a lot to say. Mr. Alvarez, you've been the chief of staff for the outgoing councilman, Joel Rivera. Some of your opponents have questioned his performance in a number of areas. Rather than ask you to defend his record, which I'm guessing that you would do, what did Mr. Rivera not do well that you would not follow or change if you were elected to the city council?
Well, I think that's more of a question for him. If you guys want to ask him,
That's
but
another story.
I will tell you what I want to continue. I want to continue some of the policies that we have begun, which is increasing the access to health care by bringing in lots of mobile units into our district. We've brought in dental units. We've increased mobile mammography screenings by providing a new mobile unit into St. Barnabas. These are just two examples. I would want to continue to, we started an e-reader pilot program, which was very successful with a Moeller Academy. And I think we would like to go back to DOE and see how we can expand that, because what we found was that the children were reading more, attendance was higher, and the grades were better. And that is new technology that will make our children more competitive so that they can land the better jobs in the future.
Others? Weigh in on that? No?
I think the West Farms community has been a little neglected. I consider Joel Rivera, the other Joel Rivera, a friend, and I think he's done a pretty good job. And I also feel that the constituent services need to be a little stronger. This is just what I've been told when I've been meeting people in terms of having longer constituent hours and more of connection with the people in the community.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Mr. Alvarez. You can have the final word, and then we'll move on.
The constituent hours are the same for any office. We also have we also attend various meetings throughout the district, whether it be the precinct councils, whether it be the community boards, and whether it be sitting and talking with our non-for-profits. So it's one of those things that it's not always going to be inside the office that somebody comes. We often get a lot of complaints when we're outside walking and get the complaints. So in terms of constituent services, there's a lot of different aspects, and if he gives me examples, we'll probably
Ms.
talk for a
Tompkins
while.
first, Mr. Bowser, and then we'll let
Well,
Mr.
I think if I were,
Alvarez.
as city council woman in District 15, I would definitely have an outreach into the community every month, meeting with them, our community leaders, having town hall meetings on a quarterly basis, if not more, if it doesn't need to happen sooner than that, to understand what's going on, what can I do to assist our community to move forward and to change what's happening.
Mr. Bowser, and then Mr. Alvarez.
I am out there every day. And every day I got to hear it from the people themselves. They always keep questioning and saying, who is the councilman? Who is he? And he's a good friend of mine, but they ask me, who is he? He's not here. I don't see him. And what we have to develop is a councilman that goes to the streets and walks the streets. Get to know the people, get to know the issues, get to see what's going on in the district. That's what they're looking for. People are not going to care until they see that you care. And that's the facts, and that's what people tell me all the time outside. We don't know, we don't see them. I go to the office, not to throw at Albert, but I go to the office and I'll leave a message, they'll never call me back. Whether that's true or not, the fact is that they feel disconnected with the city council office.
Mr. Alvarez, go ahead.
I thought that was a quasi-endorsement there for a second about being out there with the community. I'm someone who has been out there in the community. I've been out there I've lived there my entire life, for 45 years. For 25 years, I have worked in the community and in the district. For the last 12 years, I have been the chief of staff. And I've been at many, many community meetings, tenant meetings. And tenant meetings are not something that every office goes to, but those are important because those are the people that we want to bring into the community boards and into the precinct council so that we get a better dialogue.
Mr. Rivera, we were just talking about the incumbent, the outgoing council member, I should say. Coincidentally, you have the same name as the councilman, and originally, at least as far as I'd seen in campaign literature and other notices, you use the initial R, so you're easily distinguishable. Of late, your materials have dropped the R, in other ways have not discouraged confusion, one would think, to capitalize on his name recognition. Wouldn't you just rather run on your own qualifications and rather be known, for example, as Joel R. Rivera, so there's no confusion as to who is who?
Actually, what you said is totally incorrect.
Okay.
In the beginning, I didn't use the R. I didn't use it when I ran for assembly. I didn't use it when I worked for Adolfo Carrion, and the current incumbent works for Jose Rivera. I've always been Joel Rivera. His father used to joke and say, oh, that's my real son, when we lived in Fordham Hills. I'm very well known in the community. I don't have to run on anybody's record. Been a community activist and organizer my entire adult life. I've led city issues like living wage, minimum wage, paid sick leave. That's why I was endorsed by RWDSU, the Retail Workers Department Store Union, Councilman Cabrera, who's the councilman that's closest to this district and borders this district. And I put the R on the ballot for that exact reason, which I didn't because I never used my middle initial. I didn't put it on the first posters and palm cards, and I wasn't the one that chose that. And since then, I've added the R to all my palm cards and all outgoing literature. So this is just a campaign tactics that's been used because people can't talk about my record because I've been at every rally, I've been at every protest, I've been a lead organizer in this district because we're talking about a lot of things, but a daycare center was closing and got 3 days notice. I was at that rally. They called every single candidate. They told me, I don't know if it's true or not, especially the incumbent's office. Nobody showed up. There was a town hall meeting in West Farms about housing issues with all the major housing, Lambert, Parkside, all the people from there. None of the candidates were there. So I think it's ridiculous for anyone to even say that. Number two, I've spoken with over 3,000 residents, over 600 businesses. Every poster you see up, I personally put up. I didn't pay someone to post those posters on the outside. They're on the inside of businesses. I spoke with the people. They know who I am, and they know what I stand for. And so do all the constituents that I speak to. So people know who I am, and they know of my work.
Thank you. Others want to respond or have it?
I just have one
Ms.
thing to
Tompkins?
say.
Sure.
I'm not sure where the town hall meetings
was in
were
West Farm at the church.
and when they took place, but no one ever called my campaign.
Okay. I believe you,
So,
Cynthia.
yeah.
Because you're an activist like me.
Because I'd be there.
Yeah.
Right?
Others want to weigh in on that?
And I think the town hall meeting you're talking about was actually a mayoral forum that was supposed to be happening.
No, it
They
wasn't
were
a mayoral
bringing
forum.
in- Yeah, they were bringing Bill de Blasio in.
Louis Sepulveda did
They
the...
brought Bill de Blasio in.
He wasn't there.
Yes.
He
Okay.
wasn't at the event,
It was,
Albert.
that
I
was,
wouldn't
that
lie
was
to
for
you.
the whole thing.
He
But
co-sponsored
anyway,
along with 6
you know,
other elected officials. It
I'm
wasn't
glad,
a mayoral
I'm glad
forum.
you came to the neighborhood so you can learn a little bit about that area because I'm a lifelong resident there and I know about the issues and it was getting more.
Knowing
towards
about
that
it
way.
and doing something to fix it are two different things.
I've
I've
been
never
doing
seen
it
you
for
in a
12
rally.
years.
Mr. Bowser, go
25
ahead.
years as a total.
Thank you.
I'm hearing the fact of all these events going on and how he's like the only one present. When we did a rally for immigration, we had 10,000 people marching from 149th Street and 3rd Avenue to 161st Street. I didn't see him there. He wasn't there for the immigration rally. His father was there. He wasn't there. When we did the marches on the street for equal liberty, for rights for those immigrants and for families that were being cast out of their apartments and taken out, we did marches, we did events, we did many activities outdoors. That's what our whole campaign is about, is going out there and helping people. I don't see him around. I don't. What I do see, and this has been something that has affected me in the sense that I say, wow, I do see people coming to me and saying, hey, you're running against Joe Rivera, the councilman. I'm saying, no, I'm not. Oh, well, that's what we're hearing. And I guess that's where your question came into play, because it's causing a confusion amongst the people.
Others want to say anything? Others?
I just have to say one more thing. You
And
know,
then we'll go back to that.
when I became precinct council president and also as the president of the Marion Avenue Neighborhood Association, we walked our community. And we chose to walk our community with our clergy, with our youth, with our seniors, where the violence was taking place. We didn't ask for media to be there. We didn't ask for all the elected officials to be there. We took it upon ourselves as residents because it is residents who we want to empower. It is residents who will make the change within the community, and that's my approach.
Can I respond? Because he mentioned...
Of course, you get the final word on this one.
I worked endlessly on the immigration campaign. I didn't just go to that one rally that you're speaking about, but I actually met with Congressman Luis Quiteras and helped pastors write letters to Albany, to City Hall, and I worked in the campaign extensively. And I wasn't doing it under Reverend Diaz or somebody else's umbrella. I was doing it for something that I believed in.
Okay. Mr. Torres, questions have been raised by opponents and in the media about the supportive housing that you live in. There are 2 questions, if I can summarize everything that I've heard. Did Councilman Jimmy Vacca, who supports your candidacy and who you work for, have any input into making that low rent, sometimes hard to get housing available? And is there anything in your background that voters should know about your mental health that could affect how they feel about your candidacy and or your ability to do the job as councilman?
So I want to actually, there has been something of a controversy around my housing. You know, and I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to note the context in which you're asking your question. You know, we're running to represent neighborhoods that have an unemployment rate above 20%. We have neighborhoods living in food deserts, children who've never known life outside of shelter, and yet some of my opponents feel that the most important issue is my housing. Now, I live in an affordable housing development. Some of the units there are supportive units set aside for the formerly homeless, and you can be formerly homeless for reasons of chemical addiction or mental illness. And then some of the units are set aside for low-income individuals. I'm one of those low-income individuals. I applied for the affordable unit as a low-income tenant. I was approved on the basis of income eligibility, and I've been recertified ever since, every year, as income eligible. I had to go through an extensive process of screening and income verification, submit pay stubs, banking account statements, and tax returns. And as the article notes, I've made, on average, about $20,000 a year for the last 4 years. So I've been undeniably eligible for the unit.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to address anything in the second part of my question?
The second part is?
The second part was there anything in your background that should concern people who might vote for you about your capacity or ability to serve as a council member?
Well, unless you believe, unless you believe that being poor disqualifies you from running. I mean, it seems like some of my opponents believe that those of us who are poor have no business serving an elected office. I disagree. I think the people have a right to vote for a candidate who is living their struggles, and I take pride in the struggles that I face. I will apologize for mistakes that I've made in my life, but I will never apologize for the struggles that I've had to face. And poverty is a reality, and the fact that I'm living it means that I have experiences that more closely resemble the struggles of my constituents than anyone else on this stage.
Mr. Rivera, go ahead.
I find it ironic that Mr. Torres tries to portray himself as someone that's very poor and connected to the community, when we all know here that he's raised twice as much money as everybody on the stage. That if you add up everybody,
although for reality, that's not money in his pocket.
No. But what I'm saying is, he's had over 15 contributions at the max of $27.50. He's supported by some of the wealthiest and richest people in this borough that live in BronxNet and Riverdale, and the elected officials that are from that area. So he's trying to portray himself as if he's one of us, that he's the most connected to the poor, but that's just completely false. He worked in Throgsneck, he lived in Throgsneck, he's supported by wealthy people from there, and he has the most money. So I'm offended that he tries to portray himself as some poor kid from the hood. He's not. We know when someone's from our community and when somebody's from the other side of the tracks.
Let's let Mr. Torres respond, and others, if they want to add something, they can do that as well.
Well, look, I lived in poverty all my life. But look, we can both release our tax returns, and we can decide who's poorer. Huh?
No, we can.
Do you want to release your tax returns?
How many?
You going to take up my challenge?
How many fundraisers?
You going to take it up?
I'll take up whatever you want. How many fundraisers
you just have a commitment?
How many fundraisers have you done in the projects in these so-called communities that you've done that are $10? And how many have you done in Marina Del Rey, Villa Barone, and the richest catering halls in this borough, where wealthy real estate people and other people that make 7 figures have wrote checks for $27.50? Let's look at the money we've raised. I got $10 contributions. I've had fundraisers from grassroots people. You got a powerful elected official to say he was doing a birthday party and do a switcheroo and say, oh no, this money's for this kid who works for me.
Mr. Rivera,
so
let me
don't
just
try to
interject.
claim to be the poor person.
Can I
You're from Prague.
Sure, you can. I mean, I was going to interject a question.
Unlike you, see, the address in your petition is actually in Fernando Cabrera's district, so maybe you should be running over there. And you actually have a history of running in neighborhoods covered by Council District 16, Helen Foster's district. Maybe you should be running in Council District 16. The only reason you're running in Council District 15 is because you have the same name as the incumbent.
No.
So the real scandal in this race is not where I live. The real scandal is that we have a candidate who's committing political identity theft. You had a council member go on News 12 and accuse you of misleading voters. So that's the real scandal. But I also want to address something else. I also want to address something else.
Mr. Torres first, then you, and then Mr.
The $27.50, the max checks come from supporters like 1199, which represents hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers in the city. It comes from unions, UFC, teachers. So I'm proud to have the endorsements of labor unions representing hundreds of thousands of working people. He got one, I got over 20. He got one mostly because of your father's work, not because of yours.
I got mine based on my work, not because I work for somebody who's making phone calls, getting endorsements for us. Let's be very clear. That's first of all. Secondly, these lines that are the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, these get drawn up in some room by a bunch of politicians that are not connected to the community. The reality for the person that lives on University versus the Grand Concourse, what was the 15th is now the 16th. What was the 16th is now the 14th. So when I speak to people, I don't deal in terms of those lines. I deal in terms of poor people that share the same issues.
Mr. Torres,
the people he dealt with are from Throgsneck, Riverdale, Country Club, and the other side of the track.
Let me ask you, if he has so much support in the... Why is his campaign office on Jerome Avenue? None of Jerome Avenue is in the district. It is in Fernando Cabrera. You're running in the wrong district.
Because my poor people got to
You're running in the district. You're running in the
Where's
wrong
your,
district.
where's your office?
There's a
Mr.
subway
Rivera.
station on Tremont. There's a subway station on the Grand
Your office
Concourse.
is in Little Italy, which is the smallest part of the district.
Mr.
Because
Rivera.
the people that support
Belmont is the center of the district. What are you talking about?
All right, Mr.
Belmont
Rivera,
has an
I'd
unemployment rate.
ask you
Hold
to
on.
just
Belmont
let
has
him
an unemployment rate
respond,
above
and that's it.
20%. It is not a wealthy neighborhood. There are people who are struggling there, and they should be offended by what you just said.
All right, let's move
You should
forward.
put your office in Broxton.
That-
And if he has so
Please,
many, if he has so
gentlemen.
much local support, why was he ineligible for matching funds? He couldn't even get 75 in-district contributions to qualify for public matching
I
funds.
have 100.
I'd like to-
I didn't
No, you
qualify
don't.
because your
Then you
campaign
would have-
manager wrote a
then you would
letter,
have-
and I must fix the 2 or 3 different things because that's the type
Well,
of
you know
dirty
what,
politics you guys
if
play.
you have
Gentlemen,
trouble,
I'd
if you
like
have
to
trouble
move
following,
this forward.
if you have
we
trouble
can-
following the law as a candidate,
You had
one
the
could
same
imagine
issues
what
that
you're going to
you
do as
just
an
fixed a
elected
few days-
official.
Gentlemen,
the same
gentlemen,
issues that were just fixed a few
I'd-
days ago.
we have other candidates. I'd like to move the dialogue
May I say
forward.
something?
I guess.
Okay.
Join in the fun.
You can, although Mr. Torres will get a chance to respond.
I just
since
want
he
to
gets the
correct
final
something.
word.
I have raised the least amount of money of everyone sitting at this in this forum tonight. All of my money came from real people with real dollars. A lot of $10, right? A lot of money that they were pulling out of their pocket that they just barely had.
That's all of us.
And
Except-
and
Mr.
and,
Rivera, please.
and so, you know, I met my matching funds. I got my check today. I'm proud of the people who supported me, and
Okay.
I will definitely represent them.
Mr.
as
Torres, you
city
get the
council.
final word if you want it. Anything further? I mean, the question was asked to you, so you can respond, or you're done with it.
No, it's a shame that I have to waste even a minute speaking about my opponent. I'd rather talk about the issues, the struggles that working
Let's
people are
get,
facing.
I'd rather go with issues also. I want to go back to stop and frisk, so we'll start with you, Ms. Batista, a two-part question. It's widely understood in Bronx neighborhoods that the stop and frisk programs have unfairly targeted and harassed people of color. The other side of the coin has some fundamental logic to it, and that is if the numbers are down, why would anyone want to mess with tactics that the police department insists saves lives? Isn't this the wrong time to back off? And then finally, something that you raised earlier, do you support both of the main provisions of the Community Safety Act to ban racial profiling and create an independent monitor of the NYPD?
So I'll start with the last. Yes, I do support the Community Safety Act. I think that it's critical in terms of us creating real accountability between the police department and the community. I do believe that we need to put an end to stop and frisk because it doesn't really bring solutions to the issues of crime. What we need is to really be more directed and targeted to what's happening around the crime issues. There's been a lot of talk about the police precincts. When I was an organizer in Mount Hope, we did a lot of meetings with the 46th precinct to talk about specific hotspots in the community and how we can target those hotspots, and people know about those things. So I don't think that the answer is just randomly stopping our young men on the street, but really looking at where the crime is happening.
Okay, thank you. Others? I assume people have something to say. Mr. Torres, yeah?
No, I disagree with the premise of your question. There have actually been, I believe this year, been fewer stops and frisks than there were in years past, and yet crime still went down. So there's no evidence that demonstrates definitively that more stop and frisk results in lower levels of crime. What we know happens is that it has a poisonous effect on the relationship between communities, particularly communities of color, and the police, and we have to be mindful of those effects.
Okay, others? Mr. Rivera?
I think the major issue here is that, and even the police department will say this, is that when you look at a community, less than 5% of that community, and this is nationally, commit 100% of that crime. And the problem isn't when they're stopping people who are alleged criminals. The problem is that when people are leaving our churches, when my grandmother's walking home, if you take Jamani Williams and Fernando Cabrera and some other electeds and you put them in a car and have them drive around the Bronx, they're going to get stopped. So the problem is that they're stopping legal, law-abiding citizens that there's no chance that they could commit a crime, and their only crime is being a person of color. And it only happens in neighborhoods. When I'm on the Lower East Side or when I'm below 86th Street, I never get stopped and frisked. Why is it when I'm on the Grand Concourse or on Bainbridge or on Briggs, I have to get stopped and thrown against a wall and cursed at? It's even the way that the police deal with people of color in certain neighborhoods versus the well-to-do neighborhoods in New York City.
Others? Anybody else? Mr. Bowser, and then we'll
I
move
would like
on.
to make a comment. Has anyone here been stopped and frisked?
The question was,
It's
is,
when you- Several times.
Several times, right?
Yeah.
And you see how the feeling is when you're in a position where you're not in control. and this was going on in our neighborhoods, and this is why we got to fight this. We got to stop this, because there's also profiling involved in this, and we got to be real that the police, they go into our neighborhoods and they're targeting certain people. They're picking out certain people that they think or they believe. I don't know what makes them the experts in just because I got a hoodie on, and it makes them an expert to say, hey, this guy looks dangerous. It's wrong. It has to stop. And we need some accountability in that. We need to hold the police department accountable for what they're doing. It's damaging the relationship with the people.
Ms. Batista, you get the final word on it.
I think the other thing we need to also think about is the consequences of what happens when a person is stopped and they haven't been doing anything, but one thing leads to another. And I think, for example, with our immigrant youth, if they get caught up and end up having to be arrested and in Rikers, they could very well be placed into deportation proceedings. And some of them actually end up on a plane going back to their country of origin. And so we really need to look at this holistically so that we don't have unnecessary incarcerations and unnecessary deportations.
All right, you want to add something, and then she can respond if you
Well,
want. So
I
let's
think
be
that-
quick, because time is short, and I'd like to move on.
I think everyone's made a lot of great points. I think statistics say a lot, but I also think that statistics also say things that we're not speaking about here as well. My understanding is with the NYPD having less stop and frisk, if you will, they've also had training, new training, and targeted those stops in a more efficient way. And I would also
I
say...
really need you to wrap it up.
Okay.
Very quickly. One more sentence, and let's go.
NYPD needs tools, and we need balance and
Got
to
it.
protect the rights of all residents.
Did you want to say, Mr. Bowser, with Bronx health indicators at dreadful levels, in particular when it comes to obesity and diabetes, access to fresh food is a major issue, especially in this district where there are few options and inadequate availability from the small bodegas that pepper the district. Give me a sustainable solution to getting more fresh food into the district, and how do we educate residents about what they should and should not be eating?
In the second part of your question, educating is key. We need to develop programs that can educate our people better. There's a lot of fast food intake from these children, which at a very early age they're consuming. When they get older, they're getting sick. There is a big problem with obesity in our district. It's that, and asthma is very high also.
So we're short on time. Give me a sustainable solution. What would you do if somebody presented that to you as a councilman?
We need to stimulate the economy in our area, in our districts, by helping and assisting our bodegas to increase their volumes in going and getting fresh fruits into our stores, because we don't. You go into one of our bodegas, all you see is a rack of bananas and maybe 2 or 3 mangoes, and that's it. That's all they have available for the people.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez and then Ms. Tompkins.
I think there's multiple levels that need to continue to be addressed. Right now, there's an obesity prevention initiative that was started through our office and in the city council, and we need to continue that. We're educating the next generation as to what is the right foods to eat. One of the main proponents was Health Corps. You might know the individual. He's Dr. Oz. Before he blew up and became so famous, we sat and we worked this project out. We bring it to the high schools to try to teach how to cook, how to eat right, how to exercise. And we also need to increase some of the farmers markets and our local farmers to be able to link with those bodegas.
But again, brief, please.
Sure. I think it's a great time for our public-private partnerships. Let's work with our supermarkets and our bodegas. Bring recipes into those establishments showing healthy living. Also, tax credits for good health. I think, why don't we provide that? We provide incentives and tax credits to businesses. Let's provide them to people when they have a doctor's letter saying we've done better.
Mr. Rivera?
I think education is great, and I commend the work that Mr. Rivera's office has done, but I think it's a dollars and cents game. When a kid has only $1, $2, he's going to buy junk food because that's what's most affordable. We need to give some type of subsidies to the business owners and the community. Maybe when you buy things that are healthy or fresh, you could get 2 for $1 or get more for your buck. The average kid, I tried eating healthy for a week or 2 weeks. I almost went broke. That's why I need to lose a few pounds. So the reality is that we need to make it more affordable for the average resident to buy healthy food.
You'll be quick, and then Mr. Bowser can wrap it up.
Our bodegueros are an important part of our community. And I think that what we need to look at is how can we create programs for them to be able to bring in the fresh food and keep the fresh foods in the bodegas. And so what I've heard from bodega owners and supermarket owners is that there's not that type
You
of
get the
program.
final word?
I walk in those stores and they say, muy caro. It's too expensive for them to purchase. So they don't bring it into our neighborhoods. We gotta have something set, a plan set, that we can give them tax credits or give them some initiative so they can be able to buy these products and bring them in. Because like Joel said, and I gotta agree with him, you got $2 in your pocket and that's gonna go to a bag of chips and a soda because you cannot afford the healthy eating.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our show. I'm going to run down and I want a one-word answer. Who do you support for mayor?
I haven't decided because
Who do you
nobody
support?
has a
Eric
Bronx
Salgado.
plan.
Who do you
First
support for
Latin
mayor?
mayor.
Undecided.
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 Wow. All right. Now each candidate gets a one minute a final statement, and by prior agreement, it's Mr. Torres who will speak first.
Well, I want to thank Gary for hosting the show, and I want to thank all of you for watching. I'm running to represent a better Bronx, to fight for working people, to ensure that every person in the Bronx has a chance at a decent life, a chance to have an affordable place to live, a chance to have a job that supports a family, a chance to send your child to a school that has enough resources to meet the needs of every student. I remember speaking to a young man and telling him that the city budget is about $70 billion. And when I brought up that number, he said, $70 billion? If the city budget is $70 billion, then where are the jobs? And the answer to that question is the reason I'm running. If the city has a budget of $70 billion, then why do we have thousands of Bronx residents living in food deserts? Why are 40% of our residents living below the poverty line? Why are there children growing up in this city who have never known life outside of shelter? And the trouble is that we are not making government work for everyday people. We are part of a borough, and we're part of neighborhoods like Belmont, Tremont, and Fordham that have been tragically underserved. And I want to be part of a city council that advocates for everyday people. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera, your turn.
My name is Joel R. Rivera. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Angela Rivera. We have 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. And growing up, I used to hear a lot of speeches from a lot of elected officials. And there were a lot of broken promises. You would see them and then see them not again for 4 years. And I decided that I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to run for office, just like Mr. Torres. I was in my early 20s working for a council member. And I spoke to my father and other people, and they said, wait, serve the community. And that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years of my life. I've been a lead advocate, fighting for living wage, minimum wage, paid sick leave, affordable housing, quality education, amongst a lot of other things. And we're going to hear a lot of great speeches and a lot of people talk, but you need someone that has the passion and is going to take that passion and fight for City Hall and give the 15th Council what they deserve. And that's Joel R. Rivera.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alvarez?
Thank you, Gary, for hosting this debate and so we could talk about the issues of the 15th Council District. I'm Albert Alvarez. I'm a lifelong resident. I'm the only candidate here who has lived, been educated, and has worked in the community in various capacities. I'm running to represent everyone in the district, not just one segment. I want to represent our community because I've walked the walk. I've been doing the work of working with our not-for-profit organizations and finding out what we need to get done. And I'm going to continue to do that work. I want to, oh, sorry.
It's okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm looking to be your voice in City Hall. So on September 10th, what I do want is your vote and your support, because I'm not looking to just get your support and walk away. I've been in the district my entire life. I will continue to be in the district for the rest of my life.
Thank you very much. Ms. Tompkins?
Thank you, Gary. My name is Cynthia Tompkins. I am running for City Council in the District 15, right? We all have talked about that. But when I moved to New York about 13 years ago, one thing I realized and I saw was that children don't play in our streets. They're hiding in the home instead. And we need to bring our children back to the streets so it's safe for them to play. That's critical. I'm running for city council to lift the Bronx, to work with every single person, every elected official, every candidate that doesn't get elected, every person that has a business in our community, to move us out of poverty and into prosperity, to better our home situation, to better our school situation. That's why I'm running for office. I'm not doing it because I'm looking for a career. It is a job. I've got the best resume. Experience matters. I've got what it takes. Vote for me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bowser?
Hi there. My name is Reverend Joel Bowser, and for the last 25 years, I have done this work. I've been in the community. I'm a big advocate for our community. I work every day. I qualify to run in all districts because within my congregation, I have people who live in all the districts in the Bronx. Some live in Manhattan, also some live in Brooklyn and Staten Island. So my job is not a 9 to 5. I don't punch in the morning and leave in the afternoon. I'm in a job that requires me to be there all the time, 24/7. And I'm out in the community. I walk the streets. I know the people. And my endorsements are not from the rich. They're from mommy, papi, the corner guy, the guy that sits in the corner, the people that sit in the parks. Those are the people who are really the important ones here. And we got to stay focused on them. And that's why if you elect me as your next councilman, I will make sure that I will be that representative for you.
Ms. Batista.
Good evening. My name is Raquel Batista, and I'm running for District 15 because I believe that it's time that we have a leader that's really going to bring our issues to the forefront. And I also believe it's time for a woman to do the job. And I've been working in the community for over 15 years as a lawyer, as an immigrant rights advocate, as a woman's advocate, and on tenant issues. And I'm looking to become the next city council member for District 15 because really we need a voice at the forefront, someone who's going to speak on behalf of all of the women who head up our households, who make decisions every day about what we're going to eat, where we're going to live, how our children are going to be educated, and I believe that I can do that work together with you.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this forum. I think next time I'll have to request 2 hours so we can really get to everything. But you've really done yourself and the district proud, and I know you agree with me when I tell our viewers that anybody who is eligible to vote should come out and vote on September 10th, regardless for whom you vote. If you do have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com, or make a comment on our Facebook page, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of the show are available at BronxNet.org. You click Bronx Talk on the right-hand navigation bar. Also, please become a fan of us on Facebook. Next Monday night, we keep going. The candidates in the Democratic primary in the 16th Council District, which includes the Bronx neighborhoods of the West Bronx, Morrisania, South Bronx, Highbridge, and Melrose, giving you a chance to be better informed about the Bronx. That's what we've done in Bronx Talk for almost 19 years. Thanks to producer Jane Filoro, director Shirley Arietta, studio coordinator is Dina Valentin, the cast of thousands who's around us here, and we'll see you next week and every week. Good night.
Sure we're not missing anything in the first aid kit.
Yep.
Did you go through the plan with the kids again?
Yes. The more you prepare today, the more you'll be able to reduce the devastating effects of a tornado, an earthquake, a power outage, or any other disaster.